Hello, and welcome back to the EDC Squirrel. I got quite a few knives in my last live unboxing from auctions, and I wanted to make a separate and more focused video on one particular knife that I got that was very interesting to me, and that is the DEFCON JK Series Fulcrum Lite. And this is a model TF6010BK. Now, I don't know all that much about this particular manufacturer. From what I understand, these are USA made knives. I've heard of the DEFCON name before. I'm not familiar with the Jungle knife. Don't know if that's like they're like a sister company, parent company, one or the other, or anything like that. Again, this particular brand is very new to me, and I haven't actually heard of this brand outside of the auctions that I tend to frequent. But anyway, this one is really interesting, and what we've got here in this rather big box is, well, first of all, we've got a microfiber cleaning cloth, which is always cool, and I have so many of those, and I use so many of those on a regular basis. We've got some non-edible candy, and we've got a tool which appears to be a T6 and a T8, which is kind of neat. I like it when they include little extras like this with knives, either extra parts or tools that you can use to help maintain the knife. You got a nice velvet cloth bag that's got a friction lock, and inside we have the knife in a plastic baggie. Okay, there we go. And let's move all the rest of this stuff out of the way. Well, actually, no, there doesn't appear to be anything else in the box. Just making sure now that I think about it. Anything underneath? I don't think so. Hold on. No, nothing underneath. So let's put these off to the side. And we can focus on the knife. Now, like I said, this is the DEFCON JK Series Fulcrum Lite model TF6010BK. And I haven't really seen this outside of the auction sites that I frequent. I haven't seen any of these on Amazon either. I think I might have seen maybe one or two DEFCON models on Amazon, but I don't believe I've seen this one. This one is let's see here. I'm on their website. They have their own website, defcon-usa.com. And it's got an overall length of 7.5 inches when it's open. It's this is from their website, 3.06 ounces. It has a manual flipper, a front flipper, and they say a button lock. Now, we've got a back flipper here. And they have they say front flipper, but it's more of a top flipper, it appears. I'm not very good with this one, only because the positioning is a little weird for me. Although it still seems to work pretty well. And also, they have what they call, it's their button lock. It's called a leverage lock, according to them. Cage bearings as well. And this is one of the few ones that I can actually open this way. There we go. Caged bearings, so it's a very smooth blade movement. Their button lock is it's on their pivot point, and they call it their leverage lock. So you can just press down. The button's like right there. You press down on that. That releases the blade. And again, really smooth movement. You can use that also to flick the blade out. And we got a drop point blade, 14C28N, which is awesome. I love that steel for blades at this price point, and we'll get to that in a little bit. A blade length is 3.2 inches, and it is a satin silver. The scales are G10 composite with, they say, combo colors. So I'm guessing this comes in different colors. I think I've seen a silver, I've also seen like a brown, almost micarta-like scales. And the pocket clip on this one is also reversible. Not a deep carry pocket clip, but you can at least reverse it. You've got a partial back liner on this one with a lanyard hole. Pretty generous lanyard hole also. But this again is their Fulcrum Lite. Now, the interesting thing I wanted to focus on really was this leverage lock. I know there's another manufacturer, Vosteed, that has their Vancor lock or V-Anchor lock, and I've always wanted to grab a hold of one of those. I plan on getting one soon. I'd seen this one auction and noticed the similarity, so I snapped this up as quick as I could. And I don't know if they work in a similar fashion or not. I'm just looking at the positioning of the button because I thought that was actually pretty darn cool, and it gives the knife a relatively slick look because you don't have an extra button sticking out anywhere, no crossbar lock nubs. Everything's all on that pivot point, and so like I said, it gives it a really sleek and rather compact look with nothing extra really going on aside from the flippers. Now, one interesting thing I noticed about the way that this leverage lock works, and again, I don't know much anything about Vosteed's Vancor lock. This is my first lock on that appears on a pivot point for my collection. But I noticed, and I thought this was really neat, that this appears to be a liner lock. You can see a liner locking that blade up like any other liner lock. It reminds me kind of the top liner locks from a few other Vosteed models. You get the Spyderco's, I think they call it a compression lock. I think a few other manufacturers use locks similar to this, where you have a liner lock. However, you use usually a separate button to press down, and then that moves the liner out of the way, and then you can go ahead and close the blade. Now, this one is interesting because the liner is coming from a direction that I'm not used to normally seeing. Usually the liner is on the other side, and then when you press the button down, it just pushes the liner out of the way. This one is on the same side the button is. So when you press the leverage lock, and the leverage lock, according to their website, is designed by Frank Shi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry. My apologies if I'm murdering your name. But when you press down on the button, obviously it moves the liner out of the way, but it does so in a very interesting way. I haven't taken this apart yet. I'm kind of hesitant to do so because of the complexity it seems like that's in this knife. But if you watch, I press the button down and it lifts the liner towards the button, which I thought was really interesting. Now, it looks like a very, very solid locking mechanism. You can see that liner is all the way under there, and it doesn't appear like there'd be any strength issues in regards to this lock. I've just never seen a lock function in that manner. And that's really, really interesting. As you can see it pushing it out of the way. And it moves towards the button, where in every top liner lock or a compression lock, the button's just pushing the lock out, or the liner out of the way down towards the bottom. Okay, my apologies for that weird cut, but I had a delivery come in mid recording. Anyway, we were talking about how that Vancor lock worked, and I thought it was really cool how they did that. I'm not sure how they did that, but I don't know, maybe at some point I'll dig around and see if anybody's done anything else to see how that works, or I might take it apart myself.
I don't like taking apart knives if they work perfectly fine, if I don't have to. If they're maintained and working well, I usually leave well enough alone. But anyway, really cool way for them to do that. Now, it's pretty lightweight. It's a bit on the longer side than what I'm normally comfortable with carrying due to the restrictive laws in my state and in the various areas surrounding where I live. So this probably won't be carried very often. Now on the blade itself, again, I've said it's a drop point blade, 14C28N, which is probably my favorite knife, or I'm sorry, favorite steel for a knife of this cost. And on their website, like I said, I haven't really seen this anywhere else. They are giving a price of $89.99. I do see a few variations in color. They have the black and silver, which I'm assuming this is the black and silver. They have a black orange, an OD green, and a desert tan. They do have a listing for a carbon, however, it's unselectable, so I'm guessing they are no longer available. So maybe in the future, the carbon might come back. Now, I'm looking closer at the blade. I mentioned before it's a DEFCON. I'm sorry, I'm squirreling everywhere. And, well, there you go, my namesake. On the blade, we've got the DEFCON emblem and name on one side. And if you look on the other side, we've got jungle knife. It appears to be a titanium, or I'm sorry, not titanium. It appears to be a TI6010BK, which is the model number. USA design. Okay. On the other side, we've got jungle knife. And we've got a part number with the USA design. And on the flipper, right at the bottom, we've got the type of steel, the 14C28N. You appear to have a screw at the pivot point, which I'm guessing we could use to possibly adjust the tension of the knife blade. Out of the box, it's very smooth, very fast. I like the way that pivot lock works. And when it's extended, you've got some jimping on the back of the blade. Not a whole lot, but pretty aggressive for what it is. And one worry that I had, admittedly, with locks of this type was if they would actuate during use. But now I can get a full gorilla grip on this handle, but I don't have anything currently in the way of that button. And even if I were to, say, plant my forefinger on here for more detailed cutting or more control, my thumb gets a little close, but I'm still nowhere near where I would probably actuate that pivot lock button. So, I mean, I guess if let's see here, we get a small sharpening choil, but there's no real way to choke up further on that blade. I don't feel like you'd really want to. So regardless of how I have my hand placement, I'm not really hitting that button. The thumb on the jimping, forefinger on the jimping. If I slide up, because I'm not going to be placing my finger up here. Yeah, I'm not really getting anywhere close to pressing on that button accidentally from the looks of it. I mean, time will tell. Sometimes you grab on your knife weird or something. It does take a good amount of pressure to actuate. Like I'm pressing down now and it's not doing anything. Like just pressing lightly. Like as if I were to, like, say, brush against it or pick it up. It doesn't release the blade. I have to give it a good amount of pressure and then it'll release. Unfortunately, I don't have a way of measuring that pressure, but you'll just have to take my word for it. I have to give it a good amount, and then it'll move that liner out of the way. Again, once that liner is out of the way, it's a really smooth feeling blade. nice and quick. I did notice that when it came to me, there was a good amount of oil already applied to the blade, as well as around that pivot area. Normally, one of the first things I do when I get a new knife is apply some KPL knife pivot oil. I don't believe I'm going to need to bother doing that because it looks like there's plenty of oil already. And kind of surprising with a knife that's made out of 14C28N, seeing as that's a really good stainless steel and relatively corrosive resistant. So the extra precaution, I'm not gonna complain about. It's still nice. I can see the bearings in there, which I can attribute the really smooth movement to. Don't really have any complaints on this one. Like I said, it's very light feeling. The only other thing on this knife is I kind of wish that the pocket clip was more of a deep carry style than this. You've got a good amount that sort of will end up peeking up over your pocket when you put that on. But again, at least it's reversible. The only other thing on this knife, I mean, other than that, would probably be this weird, I'm going to call it a top flipper because it's not really in front. And it's a little harder for me to use it or flip it like my usual front flipping knives because it's just a weird placement for me. But it is the first knife that I can actually open up over the top like this. And it works pretty well. There's a lot of front flippers that I have a hard time opening the knife that way, if being able to do so at all or safely. So that's pretty neat. I think because of the way they put the front flipper or top flipper, and with the relatively slim size of the rear flipper, it keeps the lines on this one really sleek. Nothing juts out too far aside from maybe that back flipper, and it's not very much at all. It keeps it still pretty compact so that you don't have a lot of snag points when you're putting this in your pocket or taking it out of your pocket. So I really, really like that. Again, nice and light, nice and compact, and works so far pretty damn well. A very, very fidgety knife, which I always like. I'm always fidgeting with a knife or two when I'm working at the computer and not even really paying attention. I've also bit myself a few times because of that, but it is what it is. It's a very fidgety knife, very fun knife to flip open. And okay, now my fingers are a little oily because of the oil on the blade, but a very fun knife to use. There we go. And just a very interesting lock. Now I'm much more curious about the Vosteed's Vanquer lock and how that works. I'm going to have to look that up and see how they do theirs. But I just thought that was a pretty darn cool thing to share and a really cool auction win for me. All right. So let's see how this one cuts. Now, again, this is straight out of the box. I haven't done any work on the blade whatsoever. So that bites into the paper almost, or not almost, it bites into the paper immediately. And that feels pretty darn sharp all along the length of that blade. Really sharp blade out of the box. I should have done this before, but I'm not feeling any burrs. I didn't think I would with the way that I was cutting through that paper. Really nice drop point, almost a spear point at this from the looks of it. They call it a drop point. Yeah, but almost looks like a spear point. It's a really fine drop from the top there. Very nice, very sharp blade. If I can get that in focus, there we go.
Really good sharpening job on this one. And again, that one was right out of the box. And looking again, has a pretty decent detent. It doesn't feel like that blade is going to come out at all on its own. Takes a decent amount of force to use that flipper. Not much. It's very, very easy to use. But the detent on this, like I can't even grip. I can barely grip the blade at all. I can't. It could be also due to the oil, but I can't pull that blade out with my other hand. So you're going to have to use at least the rear flipper button or the top flipper in order to get that blade out. And with either way of opening the blade, it's nice and quick. And you get that solid click from the liner lock to let you know that the blade is now locked and secure. That is really, really neat. So if you want to check this out, again, I haven't really seen it too many places. The only places I've ever seen this was on the auction site that I frequent. Otherwise, they do have a website, and that website is defcon-usa.com. I'll go ahead and put a link down below if you want to check that out. They do have a large variety of knives, and this is the first and only one that I've got from them. But now that I've had a chance to look at this one, they're definitely a manufacturer that I'm going to want to take a closer look at some of their other stuff in the future. So if you liked what you saw, please drop a like down below. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll get notified of new videos as soon as they drop. Thanks again, and hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.